Hi, I'm Dr. Christy Del Castillo Heggie. I am one of the co-founders of the Fed is Best Foundation. For World Breastfeeding Week and Month, as well as Safe Infant Feeding Month, we are featuring moms in the community who have different infant feeding experiences. We are doing this so that moms know the diversity of infant feeding experiences so that you can better navigate your own, which will be different every single kid, every single time. So it's my pleasure to introduce Kristen Umunna, who is a longtime Fed is Best supporter, and she's an amazing mom,
Oh,
and
thank you.
an amazing photographer. I mean, my goodness.
Thank you.
Okay, Kristen, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Kristen Umunna. I am a wife and mom to 5 kids. My oldest is only 5. So my kids this year are 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Oh my God!
Yes.
Like I said.
Yes. Yes. So I'm a professional photographer. I am a math teacher. I haven't taught in a couple of years since I've had the kids. Childcare can get really expensive. So I'm doing my photography thing and just taking care of the kids and just taking life one day at a time, wherever it leads me right now. So
That's amazing.
yes.
Okay, wonderful. All right. So what were your expectations with regard to infant feeding, and ultimately, what was your experience? Tell us about all 5 of your kids. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Or if you want to do the short version, you can do that too. But whatever the ones that stick out the most, the parts of it.
Yes. So my expectations were that I was going to breastfeed. Definitely. I just had it like in my mind. That is what I was going to do. And I saw some of my friends doing it, and I was like, okay, this is not going to be an issue for me at all. So I got pregnant with my oldest, who's 5 now. In 2013, I had her in February of 2014. And I had my birth plan just set out. I was like, I'm not going to take the epidural. That's where it all began. I'm not going to be induced. Turns out I did get induced and I did get the epidural, but I'm happy I did. So more on that later. I ended up getting induced with all 5 of my kids and getting the epidural with all 5 of them. And I'm thankful that I did for each one. I had a great experience. But after I had her in the hospital, I told the nurses that I wanted to breastfeed. I'm not sure if the hospital was actually a baby-friendly hospital. I mean, I wasn't really familiar with the terms at that time. That was 5 years ago. But I told them that I wanted to breastfeed. And so they put her to my breast right after I had her. And then I stayed in the hospital 2 days after, and she didn't cry. My baby didn't cry. She slept a lot. It was just, everything seemed normal. The only problem I really had was on the last night. She woke up and she was trying to eat like every 30 minutes or something. And I told the nurse, like, is she really this hungry that she's eating this often so much? And the nurse said, yes. And she kind of brushed me off at the time. So I did not hardly sleep at all. I just kept trying to feed her. And then I got frustrated. I started crying because I couldn't understand why she was wanting to eat so much. I didn't expect that at all. I thought that babies would sleep for at least an hour after they ate or something. She just kept waking up, not necessarily crying, but she just wanted to feed, moving a lot in her bassinet. And the nurse saw me crying once, and she came in and she was like, what are you crying for? This shouldn't hurt. If you're doing it right, it shouldn't hurt. Stop crying. And my husband was there.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yes, she said that. And she was like almost like forcing my daughter, to the breast. And I was like, okay, well, maybe that's just how it's supposed to be, because I didn't know at the time that, okay, a baby shouldn't be waking up every 30 minutes all night. Maybe she's not getting enough. So the next day we were released from the hospital and I went home, and that's when my daughter started crying a lot. She was crying. I would, nurse her for a few minutes. She would start screaming again. Now, she was actually like having tears when she was crying. So I was like, okay, there's probably not an issue or anything, with her. She's probably just hungry. So I just kept nursing her all night. Then the next day, I told my husband, I think there's something wrong with her. Like, why is she crying so much? This can't be right. I don't know why she keeps crying, after eating. She should be at least satisfied, and I wasn't offered any formula in the hospital because I was told that it was normal what was happening, that she was waking up and eating all the time. So I was like, I don't think this is right. So I didn't make a doctor's appointment or anything. I just went straight back to the hospital. And I was like, my baby is crying so much and she keeps trying to eat. I feel like there's something wrong with her. I told the lady at the front desk that. And they sent me right up to the pediatrician because that hospital was like connected to like the pediatrician's offices. Right. So I went straight up to the pediatrician and they called up there for me. And as soon as I got to the pediatrician, the lady said at the front desk, she was like, I'll get a lactation consultant to come up. So the lactation consultant came up. And immediately she was like, oh no, this baby's hungry. She needs formula. So they gave me a bottle to feed her finally after like 2 days of her crying and basically not eating. So I went into the pediatrician's office and the pediatrician immediately said to me, oh, this is a sweet baby. And I was like, what does that mean? She was like, your baby's dehydrated. Like I can tell. So they sent me over to the pediatrics intensive care unit. I went straight over there and they just started taking out all this stuff and doing tests on me. I didn't know what was happening. I was crying. I didn't know what was taking place. They started doing tests on her. And I was like, oh, is she okay? Are we going to be able to come home today? And they were like, no, you're going to be here for a while. They're like, her labs are all off, completely off. She's very dehydrated. So yeah, she was under the lights because for jaundice. She was under there and we stayed in the PICU for maybe, I think it was 2 or 3 days we were there, but it didn't end there. They gave her formula, but they kept telling me that I still had to pump. And I was crying because I felt like this was all my fault, because I couldn't breastfeed her. Like, how could I have, not known that she was dehydrated? I should have taken her in sooner. I felt terrible, but they continued to just push me pumping. So I was just pumping through the tears and pain while she was hooked up to everything, and eventually after 2 or 3 days of her getting formula and me having to pump, I was pumping half an ounce from both breasts. So obviously not enough. It was not now I look at it, it wasn't even worth the trouble because it wasn't enough for her. She needed the formula. So that's how everything began, and eventually we went home and I did, pump for, it was very lax for how I pumped because she was happy on formula. And, I realized, hey, she's just fine being on formula. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. She needs it. So I did pump for maybe like 2 or 3 weeks after. And then after that, I was so tired of being tied to the pump because I wasn't making hardly anything. I switched her to formula completely. And she was totally happy after that. And then my second, third, fourth, fifth babies, I formula fed them from day one. I still got, you know, a little bit of some like pushback with my second baby about, you know, formula feeding from day one from my healthcare professionals. But baby 3, 4, 5, I was more confident with myself and in my feeding decisions. I told my OB before I even got to the hospital to deliver, this is what I'm going to do. This is my birth plan. And they were there. They have formula like stocked in my room for me and everything, you know, and I felt that I was, just a happier mom. I did suffer from postpartum depression after I had my first baby and then my second baby as well. But I think it really helped me formula feeding from day one, the last 3 kids. It helps me to not, you know, get sucked into that emotionally. It made me happier. I got out with the babies more, and you know, everything just turned out better when I decided to, you know, take control of that, you know, and understanding that formula feeding is okay and that my babies will be healthy, will be happy. I will bond with them, you know, and, you know, we can have a great relationship that way with formula.
Did you ever get any negativity when you decided you were going to be, you know, you were going to formula feed, like from either friends or family or health professionals? Like, what were you told, or what were you, you know, what were the attitudes, do you think?
Well, my father actually told me to formula feed from day one. My first baby, he did.
Oh, is
And I
that
was like, well, you're just not educated on this. You don't know anything. But turns out I did formula feed. And he actually was very, very supportive of me. After my daughter spent, you know, time in the PICU, he was very supportive. He helped me like pay for my formula and everything. Like, he was supportive. My family was totally supportive. I have some breastfeeders in the family, some formula feeders in the family. They were totally supportive of me. Now my healthcare professionals, I'll just say by my 4th baby, I was still having nurses, you know, they ask you at your follow-up appointments, are you breastfeeding or bottle feeding? And I'll tell them, oh, I'm formula feeding. I still had nurses, even for my 4th and 5th babies, say, why? You didn't even try? You didn't try to breastfeed? I'm like, this is my 4th kid. I think I know what I'm doing by now. So they, you know, and I get a lot of crap from just strangers. That's the biggest, you know, issue that I've had. People who see me pulling out a bottle in public. I was at a restaurant once, and my second born, my son, was crying. We were at Olive Garden. I remember this night vividly. She was like, what's wrong with that baby? And I was like, I don't know. He's a baby. Baby's crying. And she was like, no, he doesn't want that formula. You need to give him some breast milk. Yeah, so I get those kinds of comments from strangers. Yes, I get them on my Facebook page all the time, you know, when I advocate for formula feeding for any moms that may have trouble. But, you know, I've had some people who've also been very supportive of my choice. I've helped tons of moms. I can't even tell you how many people have seen my post about formula feeding or have seen my story and messaged me privately on Facebook and said, hey, I'm having this issue. Can you help me with this? or what's the best formula to get, or how do I save money on formula? Like, I've had so many different messages. So, it's kind of mixed right now. I think at this point, I don't get a lot of crap, but I think it's because people know that I'm really confident in my decision, and they won't be able to really push me around regarding it. I think that's kind of stopping people from, saying bad things right now.
Do you, what would you say now that you're a fifth-time mom? What would you say, what's the piece of advice you would give to yourself as a first-time mom?
I would probably tell myself that it was okay from day one for me to formula feed when I had issues. I realized that after a few weeks, and then the guilt followed me for several months after that. I would, tell myself that it was okay, and also not to feel like I failed my child. I didn't fail at anything, and just to be confident in my feeding decisions. I look at it now, and I got confident after my third child. Really wish I was more like that after my first child, and yeah, I think, and then also I would probably have, with my birth plan, instead of being so rigid and everything, I probably would tell myself it's okay to allow yourself to have options and to just open up that door. Life isn't like that. Like, things don't happen in life exactly how we plan them.
Exactly.
So I need to be flexible with that, just like I'm flexible with other things in life. It's okay to be flexible with your birth plan. It's okay that if something doesn't turn out the way you plan, you haven't done anything wrong. You aren't less of a mom. You did your best. You're a great mom, So yeah, that would be my number one piece of advice to myself. And I'm still working on it now, because I'm very type A about a lot of things in my life. So flexibility is something that I'm still working on.
There are a lot of moms like that. And pro tip from all of us experienced moms, first-time moms who are expecting their first baby: it never goes as you plan.
Yes, nothing.
Best way to have that epidural is to plan to not have it.
Exactly. I totally agree.
Okay, last thing. What do you feel health providers should do to support moms and also to prevent the things like you went through with your firstborn?
I feel like I almost feel like I was kind of failed a little while I was still in the hospital with her, because I don't feel like I should have been the one to come back to the hospital and say, I think there's something wrong. I feel like health professionals should, they should also be not as rigid, I feel, so that they can recognize when a child is not getting enough from their mother. I think they should be more educated too on like an infant's stomach size as well when they're born. It's not tiny, like it's not that tiny little thing that we once thought. It's not that. I feel that they should be more educated too as far as that, so that they can pass it on to new moms, and we can start to avoid things that with babies getting dehydrated and all that, like my baby did. What if I had waited too late? Right. I'm thankful that I came back to the hospital and said, hey, something's not right. But what if I did not? What if I just said, oh, they're right? I should just keep on feeding every 30 minutes. What would have happened? So I feel that health professionals can just support moms too, if they do decide to formula feed. I mean, that from day one, that's their choice, is their body. They can choose to do that. They have their reasons, and they shouldn't assume that new moms are just uneducated if they decide to formula feed. You know, that could be a very educated decision that they've made, done tons of research on it, and come to that conclusion.
Right. It's your body, your choice. You know what the baby needs, and you know, it's oftentimes pegged as a educated versus uneducated choice, but quite frankly, some of the most educated people in the world are actual moms. Who've been through it and who've seen the consequences of not having enough and watching a baby go hungry. It's not okay. And we're not being taught about these things, and it's hurting our children. So I hate to peg in on it. Okay. I'm probably gonna cut that out because I don't want to, like, steal the stage or anything. But oh my gosh. Okay. Did you want to say anything else? I mean, you did amazing. I just wanted to
oh, thank you.
If there was anything else that you wanted to add?
No, I'm very passionate about this. I am. You know, I don't want other moms to go through what I went through. You know, if we can help it. So I want to be one of the people where, you know, you can message me and ask me like, hey, tell me more about formula feeding, because I feel like, you know, some people may be afraid, just like me, you know, going to their healthcare professionals who's like, breast is best, only do breastfeeding. Sometimes it helps to hear your peers, you know, tell you what they went through and ways to avoid, you know, things like that. So, I just hope I can keep being that person to other people. I really do.
That's awesome. Well, ultimately, everyone needs to be supported, and you know, to leave formula feeding families out of the dialogue, to leave them out of the, you know, when we talk about infant feeding and we say moms need to be supported, only the breastfeeding moms, though.
Yes.
How is that okay?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's a giant portion of the population that formula feed, either partially or completely. It's okay to say that they don't matter. And it's not.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kristen. You have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks to your kids and your family, your beautiful
They're all waking up from a nap. I actually put them to a nap so I can do this. That's why it's so quiet right now.
Wow, it's amazing that you got all of them asleep.
Oh yeah, definitely. Bribery works though. That's how you get them.
Okay, Kristen, thank you so much. You have a good day.
Thank you. All right.
Bye.